In today's brief video, I want to share with you guys a concept that I refer to as weed lock, and I want to walk you through each of the three stages of weed lock that may exist for an individual along their cannabis consumption journey. Stage number one is typically recreational use or medical use. Everything is going well when it comes to cannabis consumption. Stage number two is where things start to get a little dicey. It's when all you do is kind of smoke weed and that's all you think about. And stage number three is where life becomes a bit of a nightmare because of the consequences of cannabis addiction. Now, I'm going to do my best to offer you solutions depending on which one of these stages you're at to help you out along the way. Now, if you're new to the channel and you enjoy the content, be sure to check out the pinned comment or the video description at the end of today's video to learn more about our products and supplements designed to help people quit, our one-on-one coaching session, or our free PDFs also designed to help people quit vaping, quit smoking weed, quit adult media content, quitting alcohol, things that I once struggled with. Okay, so stage number one of weed lock, and you guys are going to notice some similarities to weed lock and the term couch lock, but with a twist on it. Stage number one is where you start smoking and everything's going well. Like you started smoking recreationally, you started smoking for medicinal benefits. Maybe it was to reduce stress and anxiety. Maybe it was to ease symptoms of depression, whatever it was. Maybe you started smoking with your friends, you're going out, you're having a good time, you're hiking, you're camping, you're going out to the bars. It's a very social thing, smoking weed, and you're really enjoying life at this point. You have no complaints and you have no qualms when it comes to weed smoking. Everything is good. That's stage number one of weed lock. And this is where you might start to notice that all of your activities, good activities, socializing, even physical exercise, things like that, working, everything kind of starts to revolve around cannabis consumption and other activities start to fall to the wayside. This is the first stage of weed lock. This is where cannabis or weed is starting to ingrain itself in all of your day-to-day activities, recreationally, medically, socially, work-wise, family-wise. Cannabis is becoming a major part of your life. But at this point, it's nothing detrimental. If anything, in many areas of your life, it might be working to your benefit. But this is stage one of weed lock. We start to forget about other things because we start to become so locked in on smoking weed, no matter what else it is we're doing in life or no matter what else it is we have going on. If you're at this stage right now, that's not a bad thing. It's just something worth taking note of and questioning what that's going to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now. If you don't have a family, perhaps once you have a family. If you have a business, perhaps what that looks like for your business 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever it might be. Is ingraining weed and locking weed into your day-to-day life a problem, or could you ever see it becoming a problem? That's stage one. Stage number two of weed lock is kind of like the term couch lock. And this is where I started to notice that smoking cannabis or consumption of cannabis was an issue. This is where you work all day long, you work super hard, whether it's at school or at a career or an entrepreneurial journey, whatever it may be. You come home at night and to relax, you're smoking weed. That's all you're doing. And what I would do is I would smoke. I'd start watching the news. Like I'd just get really high and watch the news, all the bad stuff that's going on in the world. I'd get sucked right into that. Then I'd usually stroll over to my phone and hours would go by just scrolling Instagram, scrolling social media. And then sometimes that would divulge into scrolling adult media content. And this is where I refer to, this is really the essence of this concept of weed lock. And it happens when you have that couch lock side effect of things, right? You smoke, you get high. Maybe I would lay there, eat some crappy food, scroll media content, and just kind of slowly waste away. Now, for some people, this isn't going to be a problem. If you're very satisfied with the work that you're doing in life, if you're very happy with the way life is going, and you don't see anything more for yourself or care to pursue more for yourself because you are truly satisfied with where you are at, there's no problem with this. But for me, I always knew that I wanted something more. I wanted more money. I wanted better relationships. I wanted a better body. I wanted a lot more out of life. I wanted more businesses. I was already in business for myself at this point, but I wanted more. And my actions they were not congruent with wanting more, right? So I would come home after working a 10, 12-hour day in my practice, and then I would just get high for the remainder of the 6, 7 hours maybe that I would be up. However long you'd be up, it's not that long, but working 10-hour day, whatever. And instead of working on that side hustle, instead of exercising, instead of working towards these other things that I wanted to improve in my life, I would get locked into my couch. I would get locked in on smoking weed, not on my goals, not on my ambitions, not on the things in life that I wanted to pursue. I would lock in on smoking weed, and that's where I would wind up getting stuck on the couch, eating junk, watching the news, scrolling social media, watching adult media, passing out, and doing it day in and day out over and over and over again. And this is stage 2 of weed lock. This is where life becomes stagnant for you. And again, it only matters if you want more out of life and you're unable to achieve it at this moment. This is where you have to ask yourself, is smoking weed congruent with the direction that I see myself going in? Now, stage number 3 of weed lock becomes particularly dangerous. This is where we have addiction. This is where we have dependency. And this is how weed keeps us stuck. So first it was fun for me. It was recreational. It was medicinal. Then I kind of found this cycle of weed lock, couch lock, where I just wasn't pursuing other things. And over time, I started to become more depressed. I started to become more anxious. My physical health further started to decline. My finances started to get rocky. Now, I'm suffering all the consequences of addiction. So here I am coming home after a long day, smoking weed, thinking recreationally this is going to be a good time. But all it's really doing now is I'm spending money on weed, spending time on weed, spending my physical health on cannabis consumption. All it's doing now is furthering the depression, furthering the anxiety, further isolating me from other people, other activities, other hobbies, other side hustles. Now, this is where weed is locking us in to the grips of addiction. And what happens? I say, wow, I'm more depressed. I'm more anxious. I'm more tired. How do I then cope with those things? I cope with what I know how to do best, and that's now smoking more weed. This is the cycle of addiction. We use a substance to create a change psychologically, physically, in the way we think, the way we feel, the way we act, the way we behave, in order to escape the anxiety, escape the depression, escape the things, the stress of work, the stress of family. And then eventually, after getting locked in, doing that enough times on the couch, day in and day out, night after night, day after day, then the drug starts to add to those problems in our life. And we can't really find any other outlets because that's what we've trained ourselves to know so well. And quitting, then I became really, really stuck. And this is weed lock. And I think a lot of people who struggle with addiction run into this mindset. It's a mindset. It's a block where they think, oh my God, I'm depressed. I'm out of shape. I'm not making the money. I have to change all these things when I quit. I got to hit the gym. I got to start eating healthier. I got to go from 0 to $1 million on my side hustle overnight. And the reality is, and that becomes very overwhelming, that thought of making all those changes, especially when we're in a place of such low motivation to change because we're high all the time, right? Addiction robs us of the motivation we need to get started to do something. It certainly damages our centers of discipline, which we need to carry and see something through. So then we're stuck in this spot. And we're thinking I have to make all these changes in order to quit and better myself. When in all reality, you don't have to make any of those changes. When in all reality, it's not the stress of the day that's causing you to smoke weed. It's not the anxiety that's causing you to smoke weed. It's not the depression that's causing you to smoke weed. It's not the broken relationship that's caused you to smoke weed. It's not your incredibly successful or incredibly poor financial situation that's causing you to smoke weed. Once you realize that none of those things, none of these circumstances are what has you locked into weed, once you realize the only reason you're stuck in this cycle of weed lock is because your brain is telling your hand to pick up the dab cart, to pick up the joint, to pick up the one hitter, to pick up the bong, put it in your mouth, and then consume the drug. Once you realize that that is the only cause of smoking weed and that only you can change that, it's independent and that's completely independent of all of these outside circumstances, then you can escape this cycle of weed lock. Now, that's not to say by any means that starting to exercise despite smoking weed, that starting to work on your side hustle despite smoking weed, that taking better self-care while smoking weed. That's not to say that doing those things won't aid in quitting. As you start to feel better about yourself, you might feel more confident about quitting. But it's to say that all those things don't have to be done in order to escape this cycle of weed lock. The only thing that has to be done is you have to tell your brain to stop telling your hand to pick up the drug, and then you have to stop opening your mouth to consume it. That is how you prevent this cycle from getting worse. And it might sound harsh what I'm saying, but it's such a simple concept once you see it for what it actually is. And it actually makes the process and escaping this cycle of weed lock significantly less overwhelming when you realize, wait, I don't have to change all these things that seem to be wrong or that are going wrong. All I have to change is the actions and the behaviors that I'm doing, starting with not smoking. After that, after you stop that, there's a good chance that the actions you start to take, because you start to gain better physical health, you start to reclaim your time, you start to reclaim your discipline, you start to reclaim your motivation, there's a very good chance that then that other stuff you want to see go in a positive direction is going to start to go in a positive direction. There's nothing worse than taking actions that aren't congruent with the direction that you want to be going in life. If you are someone who's an entrepreneur, business-minded, health-minded, all this stuff, and you really are that person, you watch videos about it, you kind of work at it here and there during the day, but then you come home and there's this major elephant in the room, smoking weed, and if that's potentially holding you back, you are going to feel like crap. And what happens when we feel like crap? We consume more of the thing that we think is making us feel better. And then we remain locked in this cycle, in stage 3 of the cycle, addiction, dependency, all of that. So just seeing this for what it is and understanding it is the first step to quitting. Because when we can break down to addiction, when we can create a shift in mindset, quitting becomes significantly easier than it once may have seemed. Now, if you enjoyed the content, be sure to check out our supplements. You're really going to enjoy this. Kick It, Crave Less Chewing Gum, KSM 66 ashwagandha, and N-acetylcysteine. It's a chewing gum designed to help people quit smoking weed. It can help with alcohol cravings. It can help with nicotine cravings, all that stuff. We have our one-on-one coaching session. It's a single session. It's not a program. And then we also have our free PDFs on how to quit smoking weed. I have a free 90-page workbook that I give out to help you quit. If you don't want any of that, follow me into the next video where I talk a little bit about weed and depression. I'll see you guys in one of those 3 areas.